Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Throw Zone. Thank you for tuning in today. So here we're with Chuk Enekwechi, and he is a two-time Olympian as well as a three-time African champion. So, Chuck, thank you so much for coming on the podcast tonight. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to kind of diving into your story tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'd like to take a quick moment here. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Lincoln Microphone. Thank you for providing our microphones for this podcast. If you're in need of any custom microphone work or microphone repair, I encourage you to click the link in our description and send them a message, check them out. And if you pay with Bitcoin, they do offer 50% off. And now I also like to give a thank you to our other sponsor, Shubert Cattle and Farms LLC. If you're looking to purchase a cow, half a cow, or any type of beef, just send me a DM and I'll connect them to you directly, and we can get you some farm fresh beef. So now we'll get rolling here. So Chuck, where did it all begin? When did your throwing career start?
So my throwing career started in New York. So I'm originally from Queens, New York. And early on, I didn't really want to play sports on a team or anything. I was always pretty athletic, came from an athletic family. But I was always a pro wrestling fan, like WWE, WCW, all that stuff. And I think when I got to high school, I wanted to kind of look like them. I wanted to get real big and strong. And I knew that the way to do that was to get into the weight room. So when I started sophomore year of high school at Francis Lewis, I had the option of being in a weight training class and lifting after school. But in order to lift after school, I had to be on a varsity team. So I also knew that I didn't want to be on a team sport like a basketball. We didn't have a football team either. So it came down to wrestling, like real wrestling, like amateur style, or track and field. So I just kind of on a whim said, hey, I'll join the track team. And I thought I'd be a sprinter. But, even though I was kind of skinny at the time, I was like 230. So as soon as I came out to practice, like coach just looked at me and was like, you should be a shot putter. I didn't know what the shot put was, but at the time, like YouTube was brand new. So they had all the VHS tapes uploaded and stuff. And I could see Reese Hoffa, Ryan Whiting, Christian Cantwell, Adam Nelson, like basically the gods of shot put all had stuff on YouTube. So I fell in love right away. And there were kids out in New Jersey throwing 70 feet. So I knew that, it'd be something that I'd want to take seriously. So, I started training. I didn't have a coach for the first couple years. That year, sophomore year of high school, I threw 45 feet, 8 inches indoors, 48.5 outdoors. The next year, I threw 53.5 and qualified for the state championship. And then the next year I got a coach, John Joseph Roman. He was actually an official, so he'd see me over the years, and he saw that I was underperforming for some of my physical attributes. So for free, he just started coaching me. Told me I can come down to the Armory and work out with him 4 times a week. Yeah, so I worked with him, I think starting in like November. By the time we had our first meet in December, my first throw of that meet was 60 feet 1 inch.
Wow. So that was your senior year, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you first started throwing, did you stick with the glide, or were you able to try the spin, or what was the first steps there?
I glided throughout high school. So sophomore, junior, and senior year, I was just gliding. And then we picked up the weight a little bit because we figured, at 5'10", 5'11", and 230, I'd probably be too small to throw the 16-pound ball once we got to college. So Coach Rahman just decided that maybe I should throw the weight so I can learn how to throw the hammer. So that first season of actual training, my first meet was like 60 feet, 2 inches or so. And then I got second at nationals to Rudy Winkler, who he's a decent thrower.
Yeah.
Then there was one meet after the New Balance Nationals in classical Rhode Island where I threw 75.8. So that kind of put me on the radar as far as the weight throw and the shot put combo. And then I had one season of hammer where I threw a little over 208 feet.
Wow. And so I guess kind of taking a step back again. So you mentioned the whole reason you started throwing is because you wanted to get that appearance of like, when you think of like you're a John Cena type build, like the huge buff guy build. And so during that time, did you have a lifting coach, or was that just you were putting your own things together and hoping for the best, or what did that look like?
If you say I was putting my own things together, I guess giving me too much credit. I again, it's back the golden age of YouTube. So Ronnie Coleman had stuff up, CT Fletcher, Kai Green, Kylie Muscle. So all these like Elliot Halls, these big guys were just posting their stuff, and I would try it either at gym class or after school lifting. And Randy Barnes had a great workout montage. I literally lifted all that stuff like from videos I saw on YouTube. When I was a senior, Coach Ramon, kind of wrote me a weightlifting
Yep.
program. But even then, he wasn't huge on that because I was so strong at that point that he figured like skill learning and technique work would be more important from there to head over to college. But basically, I copied what I saw on YouTube and I survived everything, so I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly. No, so that's a similar outlook that I had, where I had a couple different coaches throughout high school, but a lot of them weren't super experienced in throwing, where they coached something else and they were just, they tried super hard. They went to a lot of camps and learned, but in terms of like the strength aspect, if you weren't on the football team in my high school, then you'd have a place to lift. And so I was the same boat of I used a combination of Instagram, YouTube, and my math teacher, Mr. Fricky, my favorite teachers ever, was a power lifter. And so he introduced me to the 531 style of programming for powerlifting. And we just kind of shifted a couple things around to make it make sense for throwing. So instead of it being, your squat, deadlift, bench, military press, it was squat, clean, snatch. We kind of alternate between those. Front squats also in that mix, and we did bench as well as like incline stuff like that. So now I understand that format, and I had the terminology of my technique might not be great, but if I can get really strong, and then it's one of those that could be my arc to get going, and hopefully someday we can land and have a coach that can really help develop that technique. So I appreciate that aspect. And now you posted on a Q&A of hot takes, and I happened to see you said that you believe that you think strength is more important than technique. And I was wondering if you'd like to elaborate about that.
It's common sense, right? Like you take a bowling ball the size of a grapefruit and you hold it on one side of your head and you spin 540 degrees and you punch it as fast as you can. You can have a good technique or a really good movement, but there needs to be a strength base there. It's not negotiable. And the extreme inverse is true as well. So you can throw it decently, maybe not world-class distances, but you can throw decently without a good technique base. So I think strength is kind of the great decider. It's the base to where technique lets you express the strength that you have. So, and when I said that, I was kind of thinking of, in extreme terms. For example, when I was coming up, and, I was a gym rat right from the start, but there'd be kids I'd throw against, and it's like, hey, I threw 50 feet and I don't even lift weights. It's like, well, if you lifted weights, it might be 60 feet.
Yep.
Things like that. Or you have kids that walk off the football team. One of my good buddies, Jordan Roos, he played football and he just walk off the football field, come out, throw 60 feet. This is college I'm talking about. And then go back and play football. And that's his, he's 6'5", 330. He bench press 500 pounds. And that's why he's throwing a respectable distance with the 16-pound ball. So you got to be strong. I'll even go as far as to say that a lot of these people that don't like, or they don't have like a gym culture and stuff, it's not that they're weak. Like they're strong. They're just strong in a different way. So it might be, I don't like the term functional strength, but you might have specific strength. Who cares what your bench press is, but if you can stand there and punch a ball 17, 18 meters, you're strong as hell.
Oh yeah, all the specific strength, functional strength. I think that's also really important. But no, you said something earlier I thought was a really good way to look about it, where like strength really important, but technique also like has it helps guide you to where that technique is the channel that lets you express that strength. where I felt I was in that boat during my throwing career where I had really high numbers, but my technique wasn't always as good. And even like I had a hard time over rotating in the spin, and I would land with my right foot way left in the center. And then I was strong enough that I could force the ball to get center again towards the stand throw and reverse back in, and it would line up and go almost 19 meters at that point. And so I felt that, like my technique, a lot of people would probably throw like 17 meters or so, but I was a fellow gym rat in my own way. I just felt like I was able to, like that stuff was just more natural to me. So no, I think that was really important, and a lot of people I feel like today do a pretty good job of being like working on I got to throw far, but I also have to get the weight room aspect of things.
For sure.
So that's
Yeah,
yeah,
there's been a shift in the culture, which I think is a great thing. And obviously, when you get out of the high school ranks, if you're talking about NCAA coaching, I would say 100% of the coaches know that to get a kid to throw far in 3, 4 years, you have to make them strong. So their philosophies may not be the same, but the goal is always the same, and the approach is similar, regardless what school of thought you come from. So, by the time you turn 18 years old, you're in the weight room and you're working out. Like you may not be a power lifter or anything like that, but like you're getting after in the weight room, you're working on your technique, and the ball going far is the ultimate goal. So,
exactly. And then I guess kind of we're on this topic. Do you have a lift that you think would be the most important for throwing the shot put in terms of like whether that's like the scientific way to look at it, whereas like a super high correlation with throws, or even just your personal opinion on whatever lift you feel has the best tie to your throw?
yeah. So in the years past, I would have thought it'd be like a jerk, like behind the neck jerk, or a bench press. But I found like clean style high pulls. So usually like above the knee, just pull it for speed. It tends to have like a pretty direct correlation to my throws going farther. So once we put them in within a week or two, like things start to kind of spike. And my reasoning is it's that movement is kind of similar to getting out of the power position in
Yep.
the not just a shot in the disc, but even like standing up with a hammer. Like,
Yeah, that final extension when you're getting all that stretch throughout your body to get into the end of the turn there. No, that makes a lot of sense. So there you go. For all the listeners out there, there's your free little exercise to add into your program, your free life hack from Chuck. We'll jump back to where we were. Sorry for kind of hopping off the rails talking about that. I know that's just an awesome topic that a lot of people are interested in, but we're also really interested about your journey here. So, high school, your senior year, you threw over 60 in the shot, you threw 75 in the weight, 208 in the hammer. At what point did you decide that you wanted to throw after high school? And also, at what point did you start getting recruited?
yeah. So I love those questions. I knew I wanted to throw in college when I went 53.5, and I started getting some letters of just letters of interest from D3 schools, and I was super excited. And nothing wrong with D3, but my coach saw that if I actually learned how to throw properly, that I could probably throw at the D1 level. He didn't know like what it could become. I had no idea what it could become, but he saw that I could go to school for free, which unfortunately at the D3 level that's not an option.
Yep.
So he said hold out for some like D2, D1 options, and yeah, so that was junior year. And a lot of these college coaches, which I totally understand, like I coached high school for 5 years, and yeah, I've been involved with Purdue track for basically since I graduated. So I can kind of see what the demands from high schoolers are, especially versus when they arrive as a freshman on campus in college, and what that has to become. Basically, there's a point value as far as scoring at conference, and coaches want to take anybody on, but it's somebody who you can afford to invest in. So I say that to say, if you're not throwing 60 feet, you're probably not going to be on the radar for some coaches. These days, the standard is even higher, so it might be 65 feet. So I threw 60 feet 1 inch that first meet of my senior year, and immediately interest started to come in. So that's when I knew for a fact that I would go to college and probably get some money and be able to continue. The problem is I wasn't good as a junior, and that's normally the college coaches recruit us, from sophomore and junior year. So
Yep.
by then the money was gone. So just as quickly as they got interested, is as quickly as I said, I can't really afford to pay, to go to college. I'm the third out of four kids, so like my older sister and brother were already in school. So by the time I was a senior outdoor season, it came down to University of Buffalo, which is in state, even though it's kind of far away from Queens, New York, and then
Yeah.
Purdue. So those two had full offers, and then I wound up going with Purdue.
Yeah, and one thing, it's kind of on topic of recruiting and stuff like that. The NCAA, I'm not sure if you have seen all the different things coming out where they're considering switching the rule set, where now junior college might not even burn eligibility for that. So I think that's going to be a huge change of things too for people that were in your situation, where now you could have went junior college for 2 years, proven like, hey, I'm going to score points for your team right away, and I'm going to develop, and I'm a hard worker, and then turn around, and then you can go, get that scholarship at the D1 level or Power 5 level even, and then you have another 4 years there to get your undergrad and a master's degree.
Yeah, yeah. So that'd be really good for development. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I was actually talking to a coach who coaches at an NAIA school in Nebraska, and he said that NAIA might even be considered NCAA by that standard too for the junior college rule. So theoretically too now you could have, if that goes through, don't quote me on this, but you could have NAIA kids do 4 years of NAIA, get their bachelor's degree, and then they could turn around and go Division I, and they have 4 years of eligibility there, plus probably even a redshirt year. Turn around and have 9 years.
I don't love that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And then it works in reverse too. So you could finish your NCAA eligibility and then keep going at the NAIA level, and then they're going to have to really figure that out before you turn around and see a 22-meter shot putter throwing at a NAIA conference championship. Yeah, true freshman. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, especially like imagine if we had like Alekna, for example, go throw at whatever nearby NAIA school next to Cal, turn around, it's like, okay, here's the NAIA national record. We got 76 meters or whatever he accomplishes in his career. That's just going to be an absolute mess depending on how the rules change throughout the years. But
yeah, that's all bad. All bad. In my opinion, I don't know. I'll have to hear some of the details, but it just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, so who knows what direction that is. So hopefully things kind of stick to the same here. But I was in the same boat as you. I guess my junior year, I threw just a touch over 60, and I was in the ballpark of some smaller schools were offering me some scholarship money, but a lot of like Power 5 were just like a little bit, or even Nebraska at the time, like talked about like I'd probably be a walk-on. And even the only reason why I had a scholarship in Nebraska is we had a lot of track camps, and we had a day at track camp where I had a stand throw at 61 feet. And as soon as I saw that changed a lot of things, because then I had a 60-footer the next week at track camp too. And unfortunately, I only glided 62 feet, but it was one of those, I just had some like crazy circumstance to be in that position as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's especially as kids have been progressing like crazy last couple of years. I can totally see how it might take in the upper to mid 60s for a lot of those Division Ones, and now even with like recruiting like worldwide and the limited amount of scholarships, now coaches have it easier than ever that they can see everything going on in the world.
Right.
So that's probably going to create an impact in recruiting as well.
Yeah. You become a number. So yeah, kids got to stand out.
Exactly. And then that's when having good grades and all the other things you could possibly do to boost your resume will come in handy. So then that way a coach can look at you and say, oh, hey, you're going to be on an honor scholarship and all these other education-related, funding. And that'll really help discount you per se. They don't have to give as much scholarship money. So
yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah. So anyways, well, back on track here. When you were about to make your final decisions to go to Purdue or Buffalo, did being closer to home have any effect on you for wanting to go to Buffalo or over Purdue?
No, honestly, because you hear New York, but it's like it's so far up north that it's like it's not close. So it'll be a long travel if I go back and forth. So it's not really being close to home. It came down to honestly facilities, and UB didn't have a dedicated indoor facility, and I knew like in this region, we're talking Midwest or the Northeast, it's going to be cold for half the year. So we know what we're getting into. So Purdue
Yep.
had a dedicated indoor facility, and that to me was a big, driver to pick them.
Yeah. And so once you got to Purdue and started up your freshman year, did you notice any big changes in the training that really stood out to you compared to what you did in high school compared to transitioning into your collegiate years of throwing?
Man, so when I was in high school, we did no type of conditioning, and for a lot of the time, I was working out by myself anyway, or myself and Coach Rahman. So there wasn't anything like some of these team, hard training sessions, stadiums, 20 minutes of hell, some of these difficult circuits that are, some of it's team building, some of it's just toughness training. And I was not exposed to any of it. They all fall under the umbrella of conditioning. So I did no type of like dedicated conditioning till I got to college. And Coach McBride kicked my ass like right from the start. So I don't even know what we did first, but we did stadiums that first month. We did 20 minutes of hell where it's like, you sprint, I think you sprint 50 and then you jog or walk back 100 and you do that and you try to get laps. So you try to beat what you did last week. The circuits were difficult. We ran uphill in sleds. Like these are things I was never exposed to. So right away, I wanted to gain some weight and gain some strength, but because of all that conditioning, I wound up getting stronger, adding muscle, but I was cutting weight like unintentionally just because of the physical demand. And then, because one of the first goals was to gain about 20 pounds so I can handle the senior implements. But that new conditioning, even though it paid dividends in my fitness and everything, but it's just something that it made me question if I had what it took to be a collegiate athlete because it was just that hard. And I found
Yeah.
myself, I would run on the track by myself. So I'd run 800s, so we'd practice in the day. And then if I get done with my homework, I'll go out and run 800s out of the track or just go on 3 mile runs to build my aerobic capacity to handle what we were doing. I wouldn't advise that, but it's just something that my 18-year-old brain came up with to
Oh
keep
yeah.
up with the demands.
Especially when we're at that stage, I feel like our culture as a thrower, you have that like, Kobe, they have the Kobe Bryant mama mentality is what I always talk about to some of the kids I've been coaching, where you're so wired to think more is more, where it's I need to wake up at 5 a.m. I need to go, get a lifting session in, and then I'm going to go throw after school, and then I'm going to go lift again. And so I'm going to squat today, and then I'm going to bench press tonight, and then I'm going to do it again tomorrow because I need to, I'm doing it 6 days a week. And
Yeah.
yeah, and if I do more reps and more weight and more like the highest intensity, then that means success.
Yeah. Doesn't always work that way. So
Yeah, exactly. But no, when you mentioned the whole stadium stairs, I just had flashbacks, and that kind of scared me. Uh,
it's
yeah,
traumatic.
well, when we first started with Coach St. Clair, my third year at Nebraska, I vividly remember seeing on the week plan that Friday we had a 20-minute stadium stair run. And that was something I've never done before or had, any interest in my free time to, have fun and do that. And I'll never forget, I have a before and after video of Max Otterdahl doing it. And beforehand, Max was like, yeah, it's not that bad. And then I have a video of him like leaned up in the hallway. We had to go do a med ball circuit afterwards. And Max is standing there just vibrating. And I was out of breath. I was holding on, trying to survive. But Max was just standing there shaking. He's like, Kevin, look at this. And his legs are just like freaking out. And that was my first experience of that. And I couldn't quite understand for a while. I thought our coach was just being mean and didn't want us to have fun the first week of school or something. And then it wasn't until later on where I understood, like, if you can push yourself to survive running for like doing something terrible that just hurts, but you're doing it as a team with people you're going to be training with, and you're yelling at them, they're yelling at you, you're having all those mental breakthroughs, and then when you turn around after a 1 rep like squat max or something, think about how less that like that might that'll suck for 5 seconds compared to you just survive suffering for 20 minutes.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it builds a team culture. It builds just toughness in addition to get setting your base for the year. So I think there's for sure a place for that, especially in the fall. And then sometimes we pick it back up, like in that the change from indoors to outdoors, set
Yep.
that base back up, and then yeah, just suffer for a week, 2 weeks, and then face the rest of the year. So yeah, I'm,
Yeah,
I'm a
we
fan of
had
it.
Yeah, that was actually my one of my biggest motivators to making sure I threw far enough to qualify for nationals. Was if you qualified for nationals, it was 2 weeks less of training for the high intensity stuff. And my fourth year, I didn't make nationals and had a rougher indoor season. And I remember just showing up to practice that Monday, and I was just so defeated, and I was just so upset because on that we just finished doing those like reverse band box squats and board bench with bands, like the least amount of strain on the body, maximum like force output, like clean pulls. And I get in there and it's 4 sets of 6 reps of cleans for the floor, and then you're gonna go turn around and do a couple like sets of 4 after that, maybe some snatch grip deads, and then finish your day off with a nice 6x8 on front squat or something like that. And I just remember sitting there in the weight room, just like trying not to like tear up. I was just so fed up at that point. And so it's good motivation, to think about that, make nationals and you don't have to do as much of that.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And so I guess you talked about you wanted to gain weight. And so did you have a overall nutritional or diets like a dietitian to help supervise that your freshman year, or is that something that you were just trying to do on your own?
We did, but my body composition was such that like the first time we did a DEXA, I was 9.8% body fat. So the nutritional advice was to just keep the ratios the same and just eat a little bit more. So we upped the calories. But yeah, I would just eat like a maniac. And I'm 18, 19 years at the time, so um, I was always hungry, and there was free food. I was on campus still, so I was always at the dining courts, and I kind of did it the bro science way. So if it laid eggs, if it had a mother, if it had eyes, I'm eating it. I'm I'm eating dessert every meal. So breakfast came with a cookie. I'd eat cheesecake. I eat like just basically whatever I wanted with a crap ton of protein. And yeah, it works if you're young, but if I try that now, it'd probably turn into fat.
Yeah.
So
No, that's kind of like, I don't know how familiar you are with a lot of the like newer like bodybuilders, like Sam Solik, for example. If you've seen any of his stuff, he'll be in the same class as the guys who eat nothing but rice and chicken. He's like, okay, I have 2 bowls of Reese's Puffs right now, and all this other stuff. That
he's changed that though as of late. So now he's a pro, and he kind of goes more
yeah,
by the book. But especially when he was coming up, and I don't think he was trying to just be funny and popular. Like I think he bro scienced his way to the pro
oh,
level.
100%.
So,
Yeah, I don't mean any disrespect to Sam. I know and plus I think the content's pretty entertaining for just seeing his overall thing. That's something that uh I get Peyton's done a really good job with his YouTube channel. That like I watched a video the other day, and I really missed training with all those guys, and being able to see the video. It was like him and Max were mic'd up, and it like felt like I was there. And I think that a lot more throwers, if they're looking to start their own like content pages, like Chuck, if you were to like wear a GoPro or something and have your practice there, and I can like live through your like POV, I think that'd be awesome too. But
that's no, I,
I
I
think
probably should post more and probably branch into that more. But I'm such like it's weird if you're talking to me, if you're hanging out with me, like it's cool. But normally I'm super quiet, laid back, and like I only record with my front facing camera, and everything I post, if you've not noticed, is like a training rep or like a training lift or training throw. because I don't really like record my day to day activities, even though I admire people that do that and I watch other people's content, but it's just like I just never feel like doing it. But I think in these coming years, I'll do a little bit more of that.
Awesome. And I know a lot of people out there love to see that. I think the throws community as a whole, I think we're starting to do a lot better job of people are posting more of their training. You know, if you're just starting out, it's kind of hard to know who to look up to. And now with Instagram, especially TikTok, that algorithm, as soon as you like a shot put video, your feed, you're gonna look at your feed and you're gonna scroll and it's just gonna be clip after clip of all these different throws. So probably one of the best times to be a thrower is now.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess another thing here. So back on track to your story here. When you were first getting going throughout your freshman year, just overall trying to gain weight and you were getting there, was that something that your coach wanted you to do, or is that just what you felt was necessary?
Yeah, coach wanted me to do that, and I knew it was necessary because you go to a track meet. Even in high school, I was one of the smaller throwers, so that's kind of been my story the entire time. So it's not something like I wear with pride. It's like to me, it's an issue that I got to fix in different ways. So you get stronger. I've been doing that. Get taller. I can't do that. Gain weight. You can do that in a smart way. So I sat with coach. I met him his first day on campus, I believe. So that was all the way in August. And we talked about goals. We talked about how we're going to get there. So like I came into the year already knowing what he wanted, and they aligned pretty well. So yeah, it was a concerted effort.
Yeah. And I guess that's another thing you mentioned, like what you can control and what you can't control. And I think that's also really important for a lot of kids to know. I had some kids talk about, oh, I'm not tall enough to be a thrower, or I'm like one of those, I'm XYZ. And if you look at it, even in that the World Shot Put series the other day, think about the diversity and body types and height, weight, just how everyone was carried, that competition alone, you had a bunch of very decorated individuals that you're still like, you guys are some of the best in the world. But it's not like you look over and it's just like carbon copy, carbon copy, carbon copy. Because you see someone, as tall as Krauser, or you see like all these other guys that are bigger, and then you see like lean guys too. And it's really awesome that our sport allows like such a wide range of individuals to compete at the same level, depending like just all the
Yes.
different body types.
In a lot of the other events, like sprints, for example, and I don't mean this in like a disrespectful way, but with sprinting, like I think like 80, 85% of it is genetic. A lot of times the fastest kid becomes the fastest teen, becomes the fastest adolescent, becomes the one that gets the scholarship, winds up being the fastest adult, winds up getting the contract. So it's kind of decided from early on. Whereas like a throws coach can literally take a tub of goo and turn it into a thrower. Like that's something I've always admired that, and that's why I wanted to be a coach because it's even looking at myself like taking me from point A to point B with my various coaches. It's like it's almost like magic where you can steer somebody's life, based on just a bunch of good workouts and training. Whereas like in the other events you don't really get that big transformation that can happen that you see pretty much commonplace in the throws. Like almost all of us at this level, like quote unquote, we're not that good starting off. And then there's kind of like a light bulb moment and a bunch of good mentorship, and then you want to, get into
Yeah,
that pro
so
level.
I think just about every episode that I've had here in the Throw Zone so far, I don't think I've had a single person that sat out and said, "Yeah, I was 7 years old and I wanted to throw shot put." It was I played football or I wrestled, or even Rachel. Her story I always thought was just amazing. She talked about how she wanted to do marching band in college. Like she had no intention of even throwing, and she threw her junior year because she didn't want to go to the events, but she didn't want to compete in the other events. And then her coach just kind of molded her into throwing, and then he made the calls at Notre Dame. It's like, hey, do you want this girl? She's a hard worker, and threw. And then all of a sudden, like she had to quit marching band because she was going to throw. And now look at her. She threw what, Ramon, like 78 and some change. And I believe that either is the world league currently or at least was at the time. And just think like one little small change like that, and she would never have thrown that. She wouldn't be competing at that level. And I think just about like almost all the guys like on your guys' stage are on that same boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why also inspired me to make this channel is I want people out there to be able to see someone that may have been in similar shoes to you, Chuck, or similar shoes to any of our other guests that we've had, and be able to see, like, I want to be like him. I want to be like Chuck, or I want to be like Peyton, or I want to be like Rachel, or whoever else I've had on this channel, and be able to see, like, if they can do it, then hopefully that can inspire the future kids to have that confidence and belief that for whatever reason they're not done, that they can keep going.
Yeah, for sure. And that's
I saw that with my high schoolers I was coaching. Like you never know how somebody's going to wind up. So that's with the high schoolers, or I volunteer on the Purdue track team. There's a lot of kids that you take them from never spinning to scoring at conference to winning conference to qualifying for nationals. And yeah, that's part of it. Like throwers are that surprise, and you just have to invest some time and let them believe in themselves. It sounds corny, but like anything good sounds
It's
corny.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like throwing, the believing in yourself is probably one of the most important things, where it's such a mental sport, where I would say the only sport that comes even close to throwing in terms like that mentality, honestly, is probably like golf or something around those lines of if you are not 100% locked in and your technique slips up a little bit, unless you're, you and have insane physical strength thinking,
Even still, yeah. But I
like
take
you
your
said,
point,
that
yeah.
like unless you're in that like 0.0001% that can recover and make it a better throw, then like you're kind of out of that contention, whether that's just a regular meet or a championship meet. And I think that's one of the most important things I've taught. I'm finishing up my first season coaching some middle school, and I had a girl a couple weeks ago that she pretty just naturally gifted, super hard worker. And they only have 4 throws in middle school. It's 2 and 2 here, where you get 2 throws, rotation, 2 throws, you're done. And she fouled one of her first throws, had a bad release on the first throw. It was a tailwind or something like that. And then she had the last 2 throws, fouled the first one, went out of bounds, and she was like, I can't do it. I'm having a bad beat. And then I had to reassure her, like, it only takes 1 throw. And you've had great throws all week at practice. Great throws earlier. Just a couple things didn't go right. Just that, like, know that you're capable of it. And sure enough, she had like a 10-foot PR in that next throw, just because she just executed it. The wind was right. The discus flew right, and I think they kind of changed her season too, because now she has that belief of, okay, I got this. Like,
You do it,
Yep.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in your experience as a professional, how much do you think the mental aspect of throwing is important? Or if you have any techniques you use to help control that aspect?
it's massive.
So
So
I have a unique path, being a Nigerian shot putter or a Nigerian athlete. And just without getting too far into the weeds, like things are difficult. And it's funny, I feel like it's affecting me more now than it did in the past because, with every year there's a new experience that's not really positive. So one of the things I'm working on now with coach is like I got to control what's controllable and like not let it beat me down so much. So yeah, the mental piece is so important. It can literally stop you in your tracks. Like, I'm finding that I'm more prone to anxiety because of past experiences. Like I can literally look back to this date or this competition, things went sideways and like stuff like that. It'll haunt you.
Oh,
So
100%.
I'm a guy that says like every question has an answer. So one thing I'm going to look at is just more, sort of meditating, talking to people and helping with, to basically vent and let things out because I'm one of the guys that kind of doesn't like I tend to offer help and
But then
like
you're not gonna ask for help. No, that's
exactly. exactly.
I think that's
So
a popular thing in our culture too.
yeah, so that's one thing. I'm just be a little bit more vulnerable, and I think it's going to be super helpful. Um, but yeah, like you said, the even if you're physically fit, if your mind's not right, that can stop you dead in your tracks. So I think day to day, one thing that's important is mental practice. So not just doing it, but being able to see yourself do it, almost like an outer body experience. So I actually learned that from my high school coach, or learned a technique. And the first step was to imagine like a really happy place. Then you imagine yourself in that happy place. And then you imagine yourself doing the technique in that happy place. And then you can imagine yourself doing it first person, or imagine you watching
From
yourself
like a
do it.
third person.
Yeah. So they're really helpful, but one caveat is that you have to be pretty calm in the first place to do that. So I think managing your anxiety will help. So it's kind of like a cycle.
Yeah, no, 100%. I did a lot of competitive marching band in high school. I really enjoyed playing music, and we ended up having a really competitive marching band, and we traveled. And one thing I took away from there that I applied to my training in athletics is we did a lot of breathing exercises. And that was more in control of like playing a brass instrument. But we did so much warming up of doing all these. We have to like breathe in for 10 counts, breathe out in 4 counts. And messing with that aspect. And it was also part of our warm up to help us get focused and be able to watch the drum major and pay attention to the count of everything going on. And so for me, if I was able to just get my breathing right, get my heart rate right, then I felt like a lot of the gears in my head can slow down a little bit, if that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah. And then in that same boat, I found my last couple years of training that wearing my Apple Watch in competition, on do not disturb mode, emphasis on make sure there's no notifications coming up, and having it on like the athlete mode or whatever so you can see your heart rate was super helpful for me. And I found in training of I need to be around this range to feel like I'm primed and ready to throw. So if that means I'm doing some jumps or something right beforehand to get into that space and get my heart rate right, I knew I was feeling good. But I noticed that some of the like more intense competitions, whether that's like some kind of like conference or just loud environment, everyone's going crazy, and I saw my heart rate was like 160. I knew I needed to take a couple deep breaths and get back there and get my mind right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but going on here, so throughout your collegiate experience, you made some significant strides in both the shot and the weight throw, as well as hammer. Did your coach ever try to make you throw the discus during that time?
We never trained the disc.
Discus, no.
There just wasn't enough time.
We dedicated, if it was indoors, it's like half the time to shot, half the time to weight throw. Outdoors is half the time to shot and half the time to hammer. So like I jumped in a couple meets. Like there's one meet in Arizona called the Gym Click Shootout, and it's three of the ring throw events in the same day. So it's just like
Wow.
a marathon, and like I'll throw the discus. I threw about 50 meters, nothing to write home about, but like that was with absolutely no practice. I knew how to teach the discus or what to watch for like with my teammates and stuff, but like anything else, it takes practice. So I didn't practice enough to be competitive.
And there's only one Chuck, and you have, unfortunately, there's only so many hours in a day in recovery. Yeah, having two events to really succeed in, props to you because that's something I don't know how many people could ever manage to fit that in their schedule. I get throughout your years at Purdue. Did you see any huge changes in your weight room presence at all in terms of like your overall strength increased, or did it kind of just stay around the same?
So I got
Real like the biggest jump was from true freshman year to redshirt freshman year. So age 18 to 19. So when I got to college, I couldn't bench press 300 pounds. I was strong in everything else. Like I could box squat 650, I could jerk 370, but I could only bench 275. So that first semester, I benched 335 for a true max, and then the next fall, I did 435 in the bench press.
So 100-pound jump.
yeah, and
I can tell you how I did it, but I don't know if that's gonna guarantee results. So that the same thing where I was running the 800s and running some mileage around campus. I would go out to the track and I would do 8 sets of 3 explosive push-ups, like super explosive, not even worry about clapping. I just wanted to get off the ground as fast as I can. I think I stole that from like Westside Barbell's dynamic effort day.
Yep.
I must have came across it and just like bro scienced it and chopped it up and like chuckified it and started doing like a dumbed down
The
version.
Chuk method.
The Chuk method, trademark and copyright. So I did that. So 24 max effort reps, and then at the very end I do a burnout. And my max was anywhere from 60 to 80. So I'm getting that. Yeah, I'm getting that like explosive work, but at the same time just straight up volume. So actual muscle growth. So I did that basically all year, my true freshman year, and then when we came back for like when we tested, I was 100 pounds better. Yeah.
And then how much body weight did you gain throughout that?
20 pounds.
That okay, that's actually insane. I was kind of thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, did he gain 40 pounds? What would that mark be? I'm glad you mentioned Westside Barbell. I'm a big Westside Barbell guy. As soon as I graduated, I got an ad for one of their books, and so actually, right behind me, on our little stand there, you can actually see the conjugate method for Westside Barbell next to my water bottle right there. Yeah, I have all their books now. It's been a fun read. It's also inspired me to kind of like look outside what I understand in terms of technique and like how many different ways, to look at throwing. And the whole Westside method, I thought that was really interesting. But no, I'm glad you mentioned that. But I guess going throughout that part, would you say that was the most major, I guess, change in your strength throughout your college years?
No, honestly, so the squat was pretty crazy too, but I showed up on campus, so I could deep squat over 500 pounds. When we tested it, I was at 650, and then the next year I was at 715,
Wow.
and then the next year I was at 805.
Okay. That I wanted to squat 800 so bad. That was my goal for the longest time. I
My strength coach at the time was he was gonna leave for a different job, and he said to some of my teammates and I, he's like, I've never seen somebody clean 400 pounds. I've never seen somebody squat 800 pounds. So this was when I was a redshirt freshman. I've never seen somebody bench press 500 pounds. So my teammate Coy was at 465, his true freshman year, that's part of why. Yeah, I mean, if you work out with somebody like that, you're gonna have to get stronger or get left behind.
exactly. So, they're gonna get tired of letting you lift with them because they take all those weights off for you.
Exactly. So I spotted him doing that, and then the next year he benched 500 pounds. I was only at 715 in the squat, so I tried to box squat 805 and got folded like a chair. So the next year I made sure that I was able to do it.
So what year was that? Your sophomore year or redshirt sophomore year?
805 happened as a junior.
Wow. No, that's awesome. I guess most I ever did was I had a 765, and it went pretty well. But the only thing was I blew out the blood vessels in my eyes, and so people were super concerned. My eyes were red the next, I guess, couple weeks, and then I like pulled something in my hip throwing shot the next week. But then everyone's like, "Oh, it's because you squatted 760," and then I actually never tried to max out squat ever again after that. We would only max out on bench on occasion, and typically like hang cleans, but not like a max day. It was more just like, all right, you have a heavy single. What can we fit on the bar today?
Yeah, which is a smart call. Like at a certain point, and it's coming from the strength guy, right? But adding 50 more pounds to your squat may not make the ball go farther. So you want to build a strength base. You also want to be stimulated. So, I think you have a similar background to where your body feels good if you're under like heavy weights.
Yep.
So
I would agree with that.
You can't just like totally abandon what gives you that stimulus. So if you like to lift weights, lift a lot of weights. Some people like the speed stuff. They like dynamic work. do the dynamic work as much as you can, because the athlete has to feel good to produce. And again, a lot of the coaches know that. Pretty much every coach has their own formula. And even though you can't tailor it to every single specific athlete, but there's, I think every coach has like two, three things in their back pocket to where they can get the most out of an athlete, especially close to competition. So that's one thing, like when I was in college, Coach McBride kind of watched, like, okay, do we lift 2 days out? Do we lift the day before? Do we lift super high intensity? So it was like there's a phase where you're kind of learning the athlete, and like sometimes like a big ass squat can help you throw far soon. Like it's an actual thing. So I think some people are quick to kind of demonize the lifting aspect, but like
Or squats. That's probably one of the first targets people get upset about. But even my teammate at Nebraska, Alex Talley, he was a monster in the weight room, and that guy had some kind of tear in his. I can't remember the exact injury he had, but he had like a tear in his groin, and it hurt super bad to throw shot to where he actually like half turned over 19 in a meet because a full throw was just excruciating pain for him, like just absolute unit.
Yeah.
And he needed to squat to throw far. That was something he was dead set about, and I didn't quite understand that. I thought he was just crazy, but no, he just more power to him. He would do a pin squat. That was what the agreement was with coach. And I was expecting, we'll see 500, 600 on the bar. Nope, Alex has like 700 on the bar, and he's doing like sets of 2 or 3 because he needed to do that to feel good. And I think there's a lot of people out there, especially at like the top level, that haven't really made their training as seen as others. I would definitely have to say that's going to be something a lot of top people do too.
Sure, I can confirm.
no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then on the topic of like finding the right timing for pre-meets and stuff like that, have you ever tried doing some kind of low intense, high like, in terms of velocity, but like low in terms of like full intensity on some kind of like day of meet lifting? So whether that's like a reverse band box squat, and someone like you that might be like 600 pounds, where it's like a lot of weight, but with your box squat being probably in the 900s or so with the bands, it's really not that much of a strain on you. Have you ever tried something like that?
Not same day.
But pretty close. So we've played with 2 days prior, and then sometimes the day before, but never. I don't think I've ever done like some heavy compound lifts like the day of. No.
Yeah, well, that's something that there's just all sorts of. I can't remember where I found it at, but it was someone claimed that they were able to do box squats the day of their comp, and it helped them feel good. I tried doing that in a little for funsies meet this last summer after the Olympic trials. Our little Nebraska track club here hosted a meet in Lincoln. They needed another person to throw in the like above 18-year-old category, so I said I'd do it and throw for fun. And so I went inside our indoor track, and I was doing some box squats before to try to feel good and just kind of get a little bit more pop in my throw, because it was trying to just get back in the groove of things. And I forgot about how like those club meets are, on how when they say like shot starts at 10, they mean the 8 and under start at 10.
We run long.
And yeah, and so next thing I know, I was sitting in a lawn chair until about 3 o'clock, just dying at that point. And so my little experiment didn't quite go as planned, but that's something I've been kind of curious on, trying to find anything for that aspect.
Yeah.
But I guess throughout your college career, where did you end in terms of your distances for your events at the end of your senior year?
Indoor shot.
Well, so my shot put all time best in college was 20 meters 37. I extended it to 20 meters 45 because I was making a run for the Rio Olympics.
Never got the 20.
50 I needed. Weight throw was 24:39, so that's 80 feet and a quarter inch. And hammer throw was 72:77, so that's like 238 feet 9 inches.
Wow. And then at what point did you know you wanted to continue on after college?
When I missed the Rio Olympics.
Olympics. So, like I just said, I needed 2050. I only got 2045 in a shot. And
That's heartbreaking if you think about it.
It was heartbreaking.
But at that point, I was like, if I didn't throw a hammer, I probably would have made it. But there's no reality of me being a college athlete and not throwing a hammer. Like throwing hammer was the right thing to do. Throwing weight was the right thing to do. So like there was literally no regret. All I had to do was like just go back to training. And like I told my
Yep.
mom, if I threw next year, I'd probably throw like 67 feet or something. Like I figured I would be over 2050. Um, so I threw 21 meters the next year,
So that was 27.
17. So there's no regret. In fact, I went home. So I finished college benching 465. I went home and I watched the Olympics and stuff and just kept lifting weights. When I graduated, I was about 265. So I gained like 30 pounds and benched 500 pounds.
Wow.
I think my mind was already made up. Like it just, even though I didn't make the Olympic team, but like I knew I was going to be a shot putter for the long run.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And so how did you navigate the end of your college career into the start of your professional career? Because as soon as school year's done, now it's you have to find a way to have somewhere to live, and it takes a lot of fuel to lift heavy things, and so you need to have ways to get fed and all that.
Yeah, so throughout college, I
Saved
saved
a lot of money, so that was the first thing. As far as lodging, I was living with my girlfriend at the time. We had an apartment close to campus, and I stayed at Purdue, so that's a lot of people have a hard reset after graduating. For me, I tried to avoid that at all costs. So I tried to keep the same environment, same resources, and people I've built a relationship with over the past 5 years. So like the training room
Exactly.
staff, all that stuff, coach, work out with my teammates or my old teammates as much as I could. So I try to keep everything the same. Like if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So I did that, and even now I'm still living in Lafayette, Indiana. Well, of course, now I have a house and stuff, and then girlfriend's now fiance. So like, but like I kept pretty much everything the same. Um, and I got a little bit of help too from like my mom. My mom would send me some money every now and again, and it goes towards feeding or like training expenses, going different places. Like if you're not at this level, you're flown out to track meets and stuff, but at the time you may have to pay to go and stuff like that. So I think the more difficult part for me was um, in that phase where I was probably like top 30 in the world. Like you're not truly professional. You're kind of an amateur trying to make your way. So there's a lot of
Yep.
uncertainty. So that like 2017 was a lot of that.
Yeah. And then what was the most difficult part of transitioning that to the professional stage from that amateur level to where now you are in that top group of guys?
the most difficult part. So I think when I was kind of
Early on the scene, it was a lot less pressure. So it's just kind of like throw as far as you can and have fun doing it. There's not like money on the line and things like that to where like the stakes just get higher with like they say with every new level there's new devils. So yeah, the higher the stakes, the higher the pressure is kind of the only drawback. And then the other part is I'm getting older. So it hurts a little bit more now, especially throwing as far as I do, lifting as much as I do versus when I was like 22, 23 years old. So like, your body keeps receipts of everything you've done over the years and
Yeah.
you can recover as well as you want, but eventually it's going to take you maybe a week to recover from a super heavy squat session and stuff like that. So that part, like just your body adapting and changing with the times, like that could be difficult.
Yeah. And so we're kind of wrapping up here, but what would you do you have any advice for like your go-to like recovery method? Like for me, I'd say the best thing I've ever found is we had a partnership in Nebraska with Hyperice, or ever pronounced that, and we had a vibrating foam roller, and that was just the greatest thing ever on my back. And whenever I would get sore traveling, we would have one of those, and we would all line up to take turns using that to get stretched out after traveling. And I'd say that's probably my best recovery method. But I think a lot of people would be interested to learn like what you do or what you suggest.
yeah. So I don't really have any.
Anything like out of the box, like I do all that stuff. So, foam roll, compression devices. I have a Theragun that I travel with, and I use in between throws as well. So Theragun is a lifesaver, and then at home I have a 150 pound roller. So it's a body tempering device that Donnie Thompson gave to me, and he was nice enough. He painted it gold and black on one side and green, white, and green on the other side. So I named it
Oh, that's
Charlie.
awesome.
Yeah, super cool, personalized tempering roller, and yeah, I use that, especially sometimes it's pre-meet or pre-practice, and sometimes it's just like a recovery device. So I may actively roll and kind of knead out the tissue, and that's what the tempering is. Or if my groin is tight, I'll just lay there with it on there, and yeah, it breaks up some of that tissue and allows you to be a little bit more malleable, more pliable. Because a lot of us, like not just shot putters, but like high velocity athletes, we produce so much force that our bodies unravel. Like we're not supple enough to receive and redirect the forces that we produce. So something like that keeps us a little bit looser. So that's something I try to tap into multiple times a week.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. I think that'd be really helpful. But yeah, I guess here we're kind of getting to the end of time. So, do you have any advice that you would give to people that want to, I guess, get involved in throwing, whether if this is their first time learning in depth about shot put or overall the sport? If you had any advice for the beginner level.
So yeah,
Two pieces of advice, like super generic. First thing, try it. You never know what you're going to be good at. Quick story: there was a girl that was on the track team that I coached at, and she was a hurdler. So her coach was like, "Hey, why don't you go try discus?" And she got the disc to fly flat in like 10 minutes,
Wow.
which is a skill that even college athletes struggle with. So I think she had a natural knack for throwing. She just didn't like it, so she didn't continue doing it. But there's a lot of like just people walking around with undiscovered talent. So my honest advice is try it out. Piece of advice number two: get strong as hell, and it's going to serve two purposes. One, obviously, it's going to help you throw far, and it's going to give you performance. But the other thing is the strength is going to be almost like protective. So we talked earlier about the forces that your body produces. Like whether you're an 18-meter shot putter or a 60-meter discus thrower, taking all those practice reps kind of takes it out of your body. So the stronger you are, the more you're going to be able to resist those forces and come back healthy as well.
Yeah. The only downside with that is prepare for everyone in your circle to let you know when they're moving and when they need to have something moved. That's the only downside. But that and being able to open up any pickle jar ever, I'd say it's also pretty helpful for that. But
need that.
yeah. Well, anyways, Chuck, I just want to give you a thank you again for coming on the podcast. I think you covered a lot of really fun topics that I think people would love to hear. And you got to share a lot of your story of just your upbringing, especially as another story that started off with I just wanted to do something else. Shot put just happened to be on that path, and then a couple other throwing events, and then here we are today. So I always think that's really awesome. But I just want to say thank you again. But for all of our listeners, viewers, YouTubers, Instagrammers, whatever you are, thank you again for checking out this episode. Make sure that if you're on YouTube, send us a subscribe, follow us on our Instagram. We'll post a lot more clips, and we have some, I guess, fun content, educational content coming up that's been in the works. And if you're on whatever streaming platform, Spotify and all that stuff, give us a follow there as well. We're hoping to keep on growing and getting more and more people to share their story, and hopefully we're able to help grow the sport a little bit. So that's all for this week's episode. We'll catch you on the next one.